Hey everybody, this is Roberto Blake of RobertoBlake.com, geeking out with you today, continuing our series on how to back up your files. Backup storage is something very important for everybody, whether you're a graphic designer, whether you're running a small business, whether you're doing video editing or photography like I do. These things are super important, and I'm going to talk some more about different ways that you can back up your files, make sure they're secure, and just remember, if they don't exist in 3 places, they don't exist. So today we're going to talk about cloud storage in 2 different ways. We're going to talk about my physical backup cloud storage and the 2 devices that I'm using for that. We're also going to talk about some of the online systems that I use to back up in the cloud remotely using things like Dropbox, Google Drive, iCloud, Amazon, and why I use them differently and what they're for. Let's start with something basic, since the physical storage that I use is a little more technical. Let's start with some of the cloud storage options that I use every single day. And we're going to start with the iCloud. That's why I pay for the 200 gigs of iCloud storage. I like being able to know that my entire phone is backed up as well as my iPad every single week. And I also like knowing that I can dump extra files that I want to take as far as photos or videos and just have them there and clear space and keep my phone empty so I can put all the apps or anything else that I want on it. Now, yes, in theory, you could use something like Dropbox for this, but the free version of Dropbox only has 2 gigabytes versus the 200 we're talking about. Now, because I have a Samsung phone as well, I did get an extra 50 gigabytes of storage, and when you guys sign up for Dropbox with the link below, the referral link does give me some additional storage that I've racked up on top of that, and that's something you should take advantage of too. But on the other hand, I like to use that for something very different, and I don't feel it gives me the storage I really need for as much shooting as I do on my phone and using the 4K video capabilities of the iPhone 6s. So let's talk about why I use Dropbox, and I use Dropbox Pro, which is the paid version, and we'll talk about why here for a second. So I use Dropbox Pro as the paid version of Dropbox for a couple of different reasons. I use Dropbox Pro because I wanted to have 1 terabyte in the cloud specifically for active projects and for collaborations with some of my new interns, for working with video editing with Melissa, my assistant editor, who is working with the exclusive videos that go to the mail list subscribers and to the Patreon subscribers. Those people get exclusive videos, and Melissa is editing those to take that off of my plate. I upload those files and share them with her via Dropbox. For client files that I'm doing video editing for, or for other projects from the design side, I also like to share those with clients via Dropbox as well to make it really easy and convenient for them, since it's something that they're familiar with. Having 1 terabyte of storage like that also means that I have the ability in the cloud to have those active working projects backed up for a certain amount of time so that I know that they're accessible, I can find them, a client can find them, and I don't archive or move them out of there for at least a couple of months. I do have archive storage elsewhere, but this means that they're easy to get to and easy to find. I also like to use the Dropbox in a similar way to how I explained I used my thumb drive. In addition to having my main resource files, my templates, my logos, my branding, all those assets here on my thumb drive, I also keep them in Dropbox. This means that some of the things I use, like the background music for certain videos or for the podcast, is something that I can access anywhere in the world, even if for some reason I don't happen to have this with me or I'm at another computer. In keeping with that theme though, and liking to know that I have the same files in at least 3 locations, those resource files are something I also back up in Adobe Creative Cloud. I'm already paying for an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. I'm paying $50 a month, which also gives me 20 gigs of online storage. Now, the reason that I don't use this for client files or other things, there's several reasons, but I primarily like to use Adobe and the Creative Cloud in a very specific way. The Adobe Creative Cloud allows me to back up certain files automatically from Adobe programs and save them in Creative Cloud and be able to access them. This makes working seamlessly from my laptop and desktop, no matter where I am, a lot easier because I'll have access to the same resources, the same brushes, some of my additional fonts, some of my textures. So I use resource files there in a very specific way that have to do with the Adobe applications specifically. I also can back up project files. My Adobe Premiere video editing automatically saves my project files to the Adobe Creative Cloud so that I have a backup of them, and I know that if something goes wrong with my machine, that I can access and work on those video files anywhere, because I'm also saving the raw footage that I use for my video editing, but I'll talk about where I'm storing that later. The point is that I use the Adobe Creative Cloud and that 20 gigs of space for some very specific things that are native to how I work using the Adobe product specifically. It may seem a little convoluted to use all of these different specific things for backup and storage instead of just using one big service or one big device, but I find that it's much like the difference between having different bins and cupboards and drawers that you can put things in and keep them organized versus just throwing everything in a big old barrel. While you have the convenience of everything being in one place and being able to just grab it and pull it out of there, you have to go through the clutter and nothing is organized and nothing is clearly labeled. So I prefer to go ahead and spend the money and the extra time of having all these things in a specific place instead of just dumping them all out in front of me with no real context. It's the same reason that I talked about organizing your desktop and keeping it as clean as possible in a previous graphic design video that I did. Since I'm a subscriber to Amazon Prime, and I'm paying for that service anyway, I also get access to Amazon Prime's unlimited photos. I'm considering also getting the additional feature to get unlimited photos and videos as well as different files, and that's about $60 more. I'm considering doing that even though it means upping the game on my Prime membership just because of the convenience and it's one more place to just store certain backups of things, and I like that, and I like the fact that it is unlimited. I might go that route in the near future. The way I use it now is to back up all of the photographs when I do my shoots and when I travel and go to conventions. I go ahead and I back up all the photos to Amazon for free because I'm already an Amazon Prime member. As you know, I use Amazon Prime to do the reviews of products here on the channel, so I order those things anyway. I'm getting a huge savings, so I like taking advantage of all the features they have to offer. So that's why I like to store my photos there instead of somewhere else. So that's how I actually utilize that service. Again, I might actually use this for cloud storage for video in the near future for the exact same reason. Amazon also is really fast on the delivery speeds because, as you know, they actually are the service that backs things like Netflix, so they're super fast and super speedy, and they have a great content delivery network, so I'm really happy with that. Google Drive is something I actually use a lot less. I mainly use it for people who are working specifically in that workflow and have Google Drive stuff that they want to share with me, and that can be very convenient. I also use it to store certain things that are related specifically to things in my Google ecosystem. There are certain things that have to do with the YouTube channel that I store there, so it is convenient for that reason, and I do use it in that way. And if people want to share things with me in Google Drive, then I actually use it. As far as my main workflow, I actually don't use Google Drive very often. Now, something I do take advantage of is Microsoft OneDrive. And the reason I do that is because I actually take advantage of the Microsoft Office online tools and the fact that I can work in the cloud and I can go ahead and create a web document on any of my mobile devices, and I can go ahead and save it in the cloud using OneDrive and access it from anywhere, and also through my email and send those things as attachments. So that's just very convenient for me. It's very similar to how people use Google OneDrive and Google Docs, but because I like working in Microsoft Office, that's just the workflow that I happen to have. So that pretty much covers my online cloud services and the ones I use. To recap, I actually use Amazon, Microsoft OneDrive, I actually use iCloud, and Google Drive, and Dropbox. I know that's a lot. And on top of that, I use the Adobe Creative Cloud. But this is what keeps me organized, and it might feel a little neurotic for you. You might have to do what makes sense to you. Maybe using one of these services and just organizing everything into folders is the right answer for you, but it just happens that I like to do it in this way and know that certain things in my workflow have a very dedicated place where they're going to exist. So that's just what makes me comfortable. So now let's move on to something just a little more complicated. Let's talk about my RAID storage and my Mirror Cloud solutions, both from Seagate and Western Digital. That's right, I actually use Seagate and Western Digital. I'm happy with both brands, and both brands have been great in supporting the channel and sending me gear to review and to share with you guys. And I think they both perform very well, and I don't really have a preference for one versus the other. I know some of you may feel differently, but that's also why I like reviewing both. I like you being able to make an educated decision on whatever product or brand you prefer. And by being able to talk about both, I'm in a position to help you with that. With that in mind, I do use them both very differently. I use my Seagate personal cloud, which has 6 terabytes of Mirror RAID, to back up and archive my physical video files. So everything here for the YouTube channel that I shoot raw, there is a physical backup on the Seagate drive specifically. And I just dump all of that without the editing so that I have the raw files to work with anytime I need them. So it is my primary archive. Now, the way that RAID works is if you have a 6 terabyte drive, you only have 3 terabytes of space because you have 2 drives that are basically just clones of one another. So you don't get the full storage space of 6 terabytes, you get the 3 terabytes twice. So, to recap, that basically means that all of your files are on this drive, and then they're copied or cloned onto the second drive. If one drive fails, you're still fine because there's a whole nother drive that has all of your files on it. So it exists in 2 places at once. So now, for it to truly exist, you'd only have to have one more backup, and that might mean that that backup is on your actual computer or on another external drive, or it may exist in the cloud. So that's how you would have your 3 backups of your video files. So that's how I do it, and that's how I use the Seagate personal cloud. As for the Western Digital MyCloud Mirror, the way that I use that is I use that to back up and to archive my design files and my client files. So any work that is for clients, I know that it's backed up on 2 hard drives that way, and that's how I archive those files that aren't active projects. I also burn a disk of completed files and I archive those physically here, and I also have a backup in the cloud as an active project until a few months after we're done. The beauty of these is not just the backups in terms of the Mirror RAID capability of having 2 copies of everything on these drives in case one fails, but it's also the fact that both of these are hooked up to my local area network. So since they're network attached storage, a NAS, that means that I can actually remotely log in using a special password, and I can access those files wherever I am. It might be a slow download if I'm on the road and in a hotel room, but the point is that I would be able to get to them in the first place. This is assuming that it's an older project that's archived and not something that's active in Dropbox, which I could download immediately. Or if I was doing this project from the road to begin with, it might be already on my portable hard drive, and in my case, I use the Western Digital My Passport Ultra. So there is that. In the other videos in this series, I'm going to talk about how I use my desktop backups specifically. We're going to talk about the one that I actually use, which is a G drive that I use for Time Machine to back up the entire image of this iMac. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about how I use my Western Digital MyBook as a backup, and also why I'm looking at an additional desktop storage device that will come from Seagate and why I might actually have 2 of each. But that's it for this video on part 2 of how I back up my files. If you still have questions, leave those in the comment section below. Remember, links to all this stuff can be found in the description. Those are Amazon affiliate links that help me out and help you out at no additional cost, so you know what to buy. Also, make sure you're going to robertoblake.com/blog. I put together a lot of gear lists and kits to show you guys what I'm buying and why, and what I would buy under different circumstances, or if I were doing different types of work or was working with a larger budget. So make sure you're checking that out. If you guys are interested in me doing some kind of Gear of the Week mailing list thing, go ahead and let me know. I'm using the YouTube polls feature, so you can actually tell me yes or no to whether or not I should do some kind of Gear of the Week thing for people who care about that exclusively, and I will get those answers from the poll, and I want to try that out. Like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the other awesome content on the channel. As always, you guys, thanks so much for watching and geeking out with me about backing up your files.